Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 24 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Burgio, and I'm here with co host Phil Burgio. Phil, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. I want to start by saying thank you to all of our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoy the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is David Simpson, who is joining us from Australia. David, welcome.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you can join us, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to share a classic poem for the episode. A lot of our listeners are probably aware of the poem, what they probably widely known as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." This poem is actually called A Visit from St. Nicholas. One of the things I found interesting about this poem is the controversy about who wrote the poem. For years, it was noted that it was Clement Clarke Moore, but there's been a lot of scholarly research recently that points to Henry Livingston Jr. So the poem was originally published in the Troy Sentinel on December 23rd, 1823. There was no claimed authorship for 14 years. It was published in the newspaper anonymously, and it went that way for years. So the question became later, was it Clement Clarke Moore or Henry Livingston Jr.? Clement Clarke Moore was a Bible scholar from New York City. Henry Livingston Jr. was from Poughkeepsie, New York. Both of them were poets in their day. So in 1837, Charles Fenno Hoffman identified Moore as the author in the New York Book of Poetry. Said, hey, my friend wrote this. And then in 1844, Moore published a copy of the poem in an anthology of his poetry. Henry Livingston Jr. died in 1828, just 5 years after the poem was printed in the newspaper. He never claimed authorship of the poem. It wasn't until 1900 that the Livingston family came forward with their claims, and they kind of got together and they shared notes with the family and, put out these claims that it was Livingston who really authored the poem. So that controversy is there, and it's some interesting, you can read about it. I know there's even an organization that does a trial every year where all the evidence is presented on each side, and then people can make their claim or their guess as to who the author actually was. But either way, it's a fun poem. It's gone through a few revisions through the years as it was printed. Of course, it was printed a number of years, and small changes were made, various words. Most notable reindeer names. Originally, Donder and Blitzen were Dunder and Blixen, which meant thunder and lightning. So anyway, without further ado, whether you think it's from Clement Clarke Moore or Henry Livingston Jr., this is A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew in a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles and coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving the nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Clement Clarke Moore or Henry Livingston Jr. All right, so that's the beloved poem. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, or properly titled A Visit from St. Nicholas. And I think a lot of people here know it and love it, and it just kind of encapsulates that Christmas spirit and, of course, Santa Claus.
It kind of like defines our thinking of what Santa Claus is and what he does. So in Australia, what's your guys' impression of Santa Claus?
Much the same as yours. We're subject to the soft power of initially the UK and now the US.
Mm.
We're an amalgam of things, but I think it's interesting because lots of people know the first couple of lines of that poem, and then afterwards, I think awareness would go down a bit here.
Yeah, I had to wave off Phil a little bit trying to recite it in the background behind me.
Hey, I've been listening to it for 75 years, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people definitely enjoy that one. All right, well, keeping with the Santa Claus theme, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to read his poem for the episode. Phil?
Okay, this is a poem I wrote in December 1988. Local newspaper had a contest, and I entered, and I won, and we had movie tickets for a year for the family. It's called Is He Real? He asked, Is he real? Will he come here? 6-year-old and full of fear that Santa's a lie. That's not true. No jolly elf, no reindeer too. Rumors abound from older boys that Santa's a sham, a show, no toys. It's only your mom, your dad, your folks. No Saint Nick. It's all a big joke. He asked again, with tears in his eyes, Are you Santa Claus? Has it all been lies? I pause and look deep into myself. I've always believed in the jolly old elf. I'll tell him the truth. I hope he will see when he speaks to his son and thinks of me. Of course he's real. I believe in him too. And that's all he needed. And he shouted, You do. If Dad believes, then it has to be true. Philip Burgio.
All right, thank you for sharing. As I mentioned last episode about your poem to Grandmother's House, I've always loved this one. I mean, you wrote these in the late 80s when I was just a kid, and I thought you did an excellent job of capturing Christmas and how we grew up and how we loved Christmas. I think that's a great poem and an homage to the belief in the magic of Santa Claus for kids.
For kids, for
Well, for everybody.
me too.
Any thoughts there, Dave?
Give me a skip on this one.
Okay. All right, from there, we're going to turn to my poem for the episode. This one's just a little basic poem, kind of a silly poem that I was inspired by a friend who was complaining about having to go outside and walk to various classes, I believe on a college campus. So this one's called, It's Too Cold Outside for Classes. It's too cold outside for classes. I guess I'm staying in. I think I'll plan to stay in bed and hope warm dreams begin. Flurries drift all through my mind in flaking shapes of every kind. It's too cold outside for classes. We had our first snow day. I think I'll go outside to sled and with the neighbors play. We'll build a fortress strong with might and have a giant snowball fight. It's too cold outside for classes. I guess I'll go warm up. I think I'll see if Mom can make me cocoa in a cup. The marshmallows that swirl around are covered in a whipped cream mound. It's too cold outside for classes. I got my homework done. Of course, that all was yesterday. Today I just had fun. No English or biology, nor math or sociology. It's too cold outside for classes. The fire is warm and bright. It calms the heart and soothes the soul and fills us with delight. Into my head my dreams do creep and pull me towards a peaceful sleep. It's too cold outside for classes. I'm heading back to bed to hope tomorrow brings no school, but more snow days instead. I hope this snow never passes. It's too cold outside for classes. Matthew Burgio. So just kind of a fun little poem that captures the essence of a snow day and kind of walks through the day in your typical kind of ballad form.
Yeah, the kids couldn't go to school, but they could go outside and play all day in the snow.
Yeah, I think we can all remember not wanting to get up and go to school.
For sure. I always loved a snow day. And then I had a stint where I did some years of teaching as well. And let me tell you, even as an adult teacher, snow days were one of the best things ever.
My wife used to enjoy the snow days because she can go outside and play with the kids. So, a lot of parents like, oh man, the kids aren't in school. And, she wasn't working. Well, she worked here. We had a mini farm, but she really enjoyed going outside and playing with the kids the snow days.
Yeah, yeah. I say as a kid, all I wanted to do was stay in bed. I used to have this fantasy sometimes that you could have your bed wheeled to school. You could stay in bed and just go to school, not have to get out of bed.
There's,
Nice.
there's a poem in that one.
Yeah, no, I haven't been there with a poem yet.
Nice. I wanted to ask you, I know it struck me after we were putting this all together and inviting you to be on. We're talking about Christmas and the winter time here and everything. And of course, Christmas obviously is the stuck date, but over there in Australia, you guys are not experiencing winter right now. Is that correct?
We certainly aren't. In Melbourne, the city, which is the closest big city to where I am, it was 39 a couple of days ago,
Okay.
That's Celsius.
just over 100 F.
Right,
Wow.
right. Yeah, he's like 39. As Phil reminded of the audience there, he's talking Celsius. So yes,
100 degrees. That's pretty warm.
Yeah.
Wow.
are you able to tell us a little bit about what the Christmas time is like there in Australia? Because obviously here, in the Midwest United States and most of the United States, except for maybe Florida, California, and that, we're thinking of the snow and all of that. But obviously, you guys probably are celebrating things differently there in Australia, right?
Barbecues and beaches.
Yep, definitely. Although there's still a hangover of Christmas turkey and ham and all that stuff, but it's hard to do sometimes if it's over 100 degrees F.
Right.
You don't really feel like tucking into a hot meal.
Right, or firing up that oven in your house when it's that hot.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite different. What we call prawns, you guys call shrimp. Very popular.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, very popular. They chuck as they say, another shrimp on the barbie. It's that TV advertising campaign.
That's what we hear here. Another shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had barbecued shrimp. I've grilled shrimp. I've never had barbecued shrimp.
Well, they're the same as grilled, pretty much.
Okay. When I think of barbecue, I think of like low and slow for hours, like with, ribs and stuff.
Yeah. No, we do that too, but a lot of barbecuing here is more like a grill.
Hmm.
Traditional kind of barbecue is steak and chops and sausages and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, well, from here, we're going to turn it over to our guest portion of the episode. David, you're the poet. Show us what you've got.
Okay. I guess to explain a little bit about why I write poetry, I play with words mostly, and sometimes stuff leaps into my head and I write it. It happens a lot, in fact. And I don't have any particular subject matter. Nearly all of my stuff rhymes, and that's just a personal choice. I grew up reading lots of different poetry and ended up gravitating towards the simpler, more humorous poets. Anyone from Dr. Seuss to Ogden Nash to Hilaire Belloc to more latterly, I suppose, Shel Silverstein, people like that.
Nice.
Not to mention, of course, A.A. Milne and some of the old favorites. And I like poetry to say something rather than just share some existential angst. I think there's enough of that around without me having to put it on paper or put it on a screen for somebody to read. We've all got enough of our own.
Right.
However, sometimes I do try and say things about life. It's funny, somebody once said to me, well, in reply to, I wrote a poem and I said, I don't really know if I think that, but I wrote it. And they said, well, sometimes to know what you think, you have to write it.
Interesting.
I'm still not sure that's true because some of the things I write, I'm pretty sure I don't think, but I've obviously thought it at some stage if that's not too convoluted. Here's one that's partly autobiographical. I don't title my stuff, but the first line of this is Shakespeare said that life's a stage. Shakespeare said that life's a stage, but I've forgotten my lines. I'm an actor, not a factor, a sad symbol of our times. I fight my plight through life's stage fright when the bright lights shine on me, but I don't have the heart to play a part when my mind is all at sea. Shakespeare said that life's a stage in the worst and best of times, but all I can do is muddle through with random rambling rhymes. David Simpson.
All right. Thank you for sharing. I like that one. I like the, pulling in the Shakespeare, then kind of describing life as the stage. and you being the actor there.
Yeah, I like the fact that you rhyme. I try to rhyme too. To me, it's sort of like it's a challenge. Nothing against free verse, but I like my poems to rhyme for the most part. You got to think about it. It's like a puzzle.
I like either rhyme or rhythm, I think,
Hmm.
or I did both.
Right.
Here's one that's got a bit of both. It's a play. I've got a couple of short poems about an unusual bird called a toucan. Just before I read this, guys, if you can imagine what a toucan is,
Oh, yeah.
mainly black with a big yellow sort of bib, and then this massive, colourful beak.
Right.
A toucan said to a one can, I don't know about you, but maybe together we can make a three can come true. David Simpson.
I like that.
So there you go. That's a bit of wordplay.
Nice. I like that one.
The other toucan one is a toucan is quite absurd. Too much beak, not enough bird. David Simpson.
Those are good. Those are good.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw those online and I got a kick out of them. I don't know if I mentioned before that was a lot of your poetry. I like how they're short, but they're witty and they make you smile. You know, you kind of get that little chuckle, that little smile and smirk. And I think that's part of the power of poetry, even the short poems.
Yeah, somebody once commented on Facebook, and I was very pleased to read it. They said, your poems are like little depth charges.
Yeah,
They're short and simple, but then they explode in my brain and make me think.
That's a great explanation
it
for
is.
it.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I wish I'd written it myself.
Got another poem for us?
Here's something a little different for me. It says something, but you've kind of got to read between the lines. The room had clean, expensive lines. Money creates a nicer class of prison, while society provides some well-paid crimes. David Simpson.
Interesting one. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I'm trying to think what I get out of that one. Almost has that like on the lines of materialism and being imprisoned by materialism.
Yeah, that's what I'm writing about here. One of the things that pisses me off in the world today is inequality, and it's getting worse.
Right.
Here's something really simple and short. I kind of think of Ogden Nash sometimes, and I think I was thinking about Ogden Nash when I wrote this. I'm just a man. I do what I can, but what I can't, I aren't. David Simpson.
Hmm.
Another little witty one there. I like that. Again, make you think. Like it's a short, sweep, and you go, huh.
Little depth charge.
I was gonna say, you want to take a moment here to tell us, do you have anything going on in the poetry world, or any projects or things, or
No, look, I'm a reasonable writer of poetry, but I'm an absolutely crap editor. So all I do is write it, and I'm accumulating. One of my children said to me, said, Dad, don't worry if you don't get anything together in your lifetime. I'll do it when you're dead.
Ah, I was telling Matt, I said, Matt, before I like cross over the rainbow, it's like to get something published. We are published a couple of times.
yeah, we've got some
Yeah.
work on some anthologies. But yeah, it is one of our projects. Maybe we'll do it jointly, is to get some of our poetry together and put out there. We'll see.
Well, about a year ago, I did a cut and paste of all my stuff from random files and put it together. And I've ended up with about 95,000 words.
That's impressive.
Given that lots of them are 4 lines, that makes a lot of poems.
For real.
I've been trying to gather mine. Matt had some of them. My sister had one of them. I'm trying to get them all together.
Somewhere in a photo album.
Somewhere in the photo album, I got a few. So I'll get them all.
Yeah.
It's a task. I did that with my poetry, thankfully, years back when I started thinking, I'm kind of taking this poetry thing a little more serious. Maybe I should gather all my poems and kind of keep track of them.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
How about another one?
Yeah, okay, here's another one. I was going to say, what is poetry? I wrote a little thing that said, poetry is words arranged to say something they wouldn't in any other way. David Simpson.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that sums it up.
That's either deeply profound or incredibly trite, and I'm not sure which.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of both. I don't know. Like, I mean, yeah, straightforward and simple, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. And especially as we've listened to our guests, and one of the things I love about it is like the concept of, you're the poet. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's got their own little style. Everybody's got their belief in what a poem is. A lot of them say what they can't say in any other way through their poetry. And it's kind of been really neat to just hear everybody's style, and especially in their own voice. I love hearing people recite their own poetry.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about listening to your podcast. I think you get a sense of that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
A couple more. One of the things I like doing is taking a fact or something that people may not know. I'm a bit of a science nerd. So I wrote this one I was thinking about stars and the cosmos. And then the first introduction that most of us have to it is a little poem. It starts off like this. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, I know exactly what you are. A fusion reactor in the sky with temperatures so very high. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, what you make is what we are. David Simpson.
I like that. That's a good one too. I love your little short poems. It's really neat.
That's a reference to the fact that all the elements in us are basically, apart from hydrogen, are made in stars.
Right.
Right.
So we are stardust.
Nice.
On a much shallower thought, this was just a little thought that I found amusing. I once had a twin, or so I thought, until my mother broke the mirror that she'd recently bought. David Simpson. So you can imagine a toddler looking into a mirror thinking, oh, I've got a twin.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you see that a lot even with dogs. Like when a dog or a cat, when they see themselves in a mirror, they don't know what to think of. They think there's another animal there.
I saw something on YouTube where a bear goes walking by and sees its reflection and wants to attack, goes behind a mirror. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah. What would you like? A nonsense thing or a sensible thing? Or
You pick.
okay, here's a little one that seems to be kind of fun. I'll do a couple of short ones and I'll get a longer one.
Okay.
This one's just about changes of mood. When I was a teenager, I liked Robert Frost a lot. He wrote very simply a lot of the time, but expressing quite deep things. This one just says, I drew a line in the sand on an angry day, but completely unplanned, it washed away. David Simpson.
I like that one.
And I do like Robert Frost. I have a poem hanging up in my living room that Matt wrote in Robert Frost style. I mean, when you read it.
Yeah, I based it off the Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening.
Did you read? You read that on a podcast, didn't you?
Yeah, I think episode 1.
Oh, okay. Give us another one.
Okay, this is a little simple one. I like cooking. This one says, potatoes have eyes, artichokes have hearts, pumpkins have skins. We eat their body parts. David Simpson.
And I love to cook too. I got a pot of soup on right now.
This one was funny. I don't get writer's block as such, but occasionally if I can't think of what to think about one of the old things, it's okay, just write about writing. So this one says, sitting, thinking, cogitating. No poem, stopped waiting. David Simpson. Interesting thing about that is that a number of people, when I've published that online, reply, I know the feeling, etc. But ironically, I did write a poem.
That is the irony there.
A lot of people didn't actually get the irony.
Like I said, I love a lot of these. You got one more? Or?
Yeah, this one's the poem about loneliness. I sometimes write about love and loneliness with no particular person in mind other than sort of life experience. In the back of my mind, I often find I'm alone. If I could find in the back of my mind a telephone, I'd ring to say, I love you. David Simpson. I can be serious occasionally.
Hey, it's good for the variety.
Yeah. I've written a few serious poems.
I've read some authors where I feel like all of their poetry sounds the same or it's all about the same stuff. I always appreciate it when they mix it up and you get a little bit of the humor, you get a little bit of the seriousness, you get a little bit of sentimental.
Yeah. Well, here's one to end on. It's a longer one, but not too long. It's an observation on world politics, I think. I like the idea of a washing machine, something that washes everything clean. It washes the clothes you wear every day, then washes dirty politics right away. It washes grubby thoughts until they gleam with virtue and scrubs violent thoughts so they'll never hurt you. It removes the darkest stains from soiled reputations and agitates warlike moves away from nations. It bleaches beaches polluted by pollutions and even reaches environmental solutions. I like the idea of a washing machine, something that washes everything clean. It washes the extraordinary every day. The world should buy one right away. David Simpson.
All right, thank you for sharing.
That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah.
That is. I like that whole concept of that if we could have a washing machine that would wash all of those things other than just our clothes. There's a lot that needs to be cleaned up in this world for sure.
Definitely.
I just saw one very short one here.
Yeah.
Oh, there are two.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
go for it.
One is a silly one and one's a short, sensible one, and that's it. The silly one first. She said she saw a penguin right there on the TV, but when I looked, an albatross was all that I could see. She said she saw a walrus on the living room floor, but all I saw was an elephant standing at the door. She said she saw a blunderbuss aiming right at me, but all I saw was the last thing that I would ever see. David Simpson.
That was an interesting one.
That was.
Bit of silliness there. Okay, one serious one to end on, 4 lines. Pinioned by chains of reason, shackled by rational thought, we're victims of what we believe and of all the lies we're taught. David Simpson.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing all of those. David, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And as we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know we are grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. We hope you're enjoying the poetry shared here. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. Now that the Year of the Poet community is expanding at a rapid rate, we have set up a patron site for those who would like to show their support for Year of the Poet. You can find us on www.buymeacoffee.com/yearthepoet. Thank you for your support as we continue to grow. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Please check out the website at www.you'rethepoet.com. There's a section there that answers questions about being a guest. Follow us on Facebook for updates and info, and send us an email to host@you'rethepoet.com for feedback or questions about the podcast and how to be our next guest. We've also recently been working to put our episodes up on YouTube, so please check out the YouTube channel at YouTube. I believe it's under You're the Poet Podcast. You can find some of the episodes there as we work to put those up. Until next time, Phil, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
David, thanks for being our guest. It's really been a pleasure.
Look, it's been a pleasure being here, and I'd just like to encourage anybody who writes to put their hand up to be on. It's not as bad as it may sound, guys.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And thank you, guys. Goodbye.